Mr. Green, do you recognize whose account this was posted to? Yes. Whose account is Bankrolls Holiday? Michael Lowe. And the caption is Rest in Peace, Skin? Yes. And you've told us who Skin was? Yes. Do you know specifically whose father he was? Dejan Nettles. I want you to go through this photograph from left to right, beginning with the individual on the lower left wearing all black, a black top rather. Do you recognize who that is? Isaiah Redfern. And the person with the gray t-shirt next to Isaiah Redfern? Raekwon Watkins. Do you recognize the individual over Raekwon Watkins' shoulder? Chris Henry. And what is he wearing in this? A black do-rag on his head. Do you recognize the individual over his shoulder wearing the black and white hat? Aaron Mack. And with respect to the first four people you identified, do they rep BFL or CBL? CBL. Now the two people standing in the background here, do you recognize the individual with the white Nike swoosh on the black t-shirt? No. Do you recognize the individual with the white t-shirt and a black hat on? Yes. Who is that? Dejan Nettles. And his father was Skin? Yes. Who did Dejan Nettles rep? CBL. And moving down to the individuals that are seated on the steps, do you see the person with the red sneakers and black t-shirt? Yes. Who is that? Myquise Jones. And do you see the person to the right of him with the gray t-shirt on? Yes. Who is that? Markel Green. And who did Markel Green rep? BFL. Do you see the person to the right of Markel Green with the navy and turquoise jacket? Yes. Who is that? Trayvon Green. And who did Trayvon Green rep? BFL. He's your brother? Yes. Do you see the individual with the green and black t-shirt on? Yes. Leaning on the railing? Yes. Who is that? Larrell Watkins. Now going down to the people that are in front of them, do you recognize the person with the orange hat and white t-shirt on that's seated? His name Head. I don't know his real name. And did Head rep BFL or CBL? No. Do you see the individual with the navy pants and jacket on and white t-shirt? Yes. Do you recognize who that individual is? Michael Lowe. You have previously said he reps CBL. Yes. Do you see the person in the orange t-shirt standing up? Yes. Who's that? Raekwon Green. That's you? Yes. Who did you rep? BFL. Do you see the captions here? The comments on the photograph? Yes. What does that symbol with the gas and the A and the NG and the 100 emoji? What does that mean? Gang 100. And what does that 100 emoji mean? That we serious? That we real? Ms. Rebbies, can you please bring up Government Exhibit 139.1 in evidence? Mr. Green, do you recognize the individuals depicted in this photograph? Yes. Beginning on the left with the individual in the white shirt and the white shorts. Who is that? Aaron Mack. CBL? Yes. Individual seated with the black t-shirt on and gray sweatpants. Who is that? Myquise Jones. BFL? Yes. See the individual behind him seated on the phone with the white t-shirt on and blue jeans? Yes. Who is that? Steve Major. BFL? BFL. Do you see the individual seated with the gray Nike hoodie on eating food? Yes. Who is that? Larrell Watkins. BFL? Yes. Do you recognize the person in the white hooded sweatshirt that's leaning down speaking to Larrell? Yes. Who is that? Shamiris Washington. BFL? Yes. Do you recognize the person that's seated up on the railing wearing a black t-shirt? Yes. And who is that? Markel Green. BFL? Yes. What about the person that's sort of at the forefront of this photograph with the black hat on and black t-shirt? Do you recognize that person? Sean Woods. And who does he rep? CBL. Now 139.1. Do you recognize the buildings that are in this photograph? Yes. Where is that located? Downtown, Towne Gardens. And was it common for BFL and CBL members to hang out together in front of their apartment buildings? Yes. Ms. Rebbies, can you please bring up government? Well, let me just ask you this as well. Do you recognize the account that this photograph is posted from? Yes. Lars Matank? Yes. Whose Facebook account is that? Sean Woods. Ms. Rebbies, can you please bring up Government Exhibit 135.2 in evidence? Mr. Green, do you recognize the individuals depicted in this photograph? Yes. And who is all the way to the left in the white t-shirt with his hands up? Rashad Rose. CBL? Yes. Do you see the person that's to the right of Rashad Rose? Yes. Who is that? Larrell Watkins. He's wearing a black t-shirt and backwards hat? Yes. Do you see the individual that's to the right of Larrell Watkins? Yes. With the white t-shirt on and gray hoodie. Who is that? Maurice Rice. And can you see what's in Maurice Rice's pocket? Yes. What is that? A gun. Is that a real gun or a fake gun? Real gun. Do you recognize the individual that's kneeling down to the right of Maurice Rice? Yes. With the black t-shirt and red lettering on it? Yes. Who's that? Michael Lowe. CBL? Yes. Do you recognize the person to the right of Michael Lowe with the black t-shirt on that's also kneeling down? No. Do you recognize the individual to the right of that person who's wearing a white t-shirt and what appears to be a blue hat? Aaron Mack. CBL? Yes. And do you recognize the person he's got his arm around that's also squatting down? Steve Major. BFL? Yes. Do you recognize the Gotti Green Facebook account? Yes. Who did that belong to? Rashad Rose. And do you recognize some of the names that comment on this photo? Yes. Do you recognize 90 Buck Watkins? Yes. Who is that? Raekwon Watkins. Now, Mr. Green, did CBL or BFL have a leader? No. Is there anyone who gave out commands that had to be followed? No. Since there was no leader, how did members of CBL and BFL decide to do things together? Just if you had enough balls or enough heart to do it, you would do it. Would you speak with each other and come up with plans? Yes. Did the two groups work together to protect the down-the-way territory? Yes. How did you work together to protect down the way? We had guns. And in addition to having guns, did you share information with each other? Yes. What kinds of information did you share with each other? About who was coming to shoot at us and police? And in terms of information you would share about police, can you describe what you meant by that? We would yell, make a certain noise if we see police coming, and get other gang members' attention. And why would you do that? So they don't get caught up and go to jail. Did you share information about what crimes you yourself had committed? Yes. What was the purpose of sharing details about shootings and robberies and other things of that nature? Just bragging. Just trying to earn stripes. Get respect. When you say earn stripes, what does that mean? It's like get respect. Trying to gain respect? Yes. Now you mentioned firearms. When was the first time that you saw a gun in the Towne Gardens? About like 12. And who was the person that showed you a gun when you were 12 years old? I'm not sure of his name. It's an older guy. Now, did you at some point acquire your first gun? Yes. Do you remember how you got it? I took it from Delvin. Delvin Curry? Yes. And what did you take from him? Took a 9 from him. And did you give it back to him? No. Did he ask for it back? Yes. Do you see the individual that you received that gun from in the courtroom this morning? Yes. Can you please point to him and identify an article of clothing he's wearing? Right there, white and blue shirt. Your Honor, can the record please show that the witness is identifying the defendant? Yes, it does. Was that the last gun that you owned? No. How many other guns have you owned during your time in BFL? Two more. What were the other guns that you owned? A .22 and a .357. Is a .22 a pistol? It's a revolver. .357. What is that? A revolver. And do you remember where you got those guns from? I don't. I just remember where I got the .357 from. Where did you get the .357 from? From Maurice Rice. A fellow member of BFL? Yes. Was that common for members of CBL and BFL to share firearms? Yes. Do you know how members of CBL and BFL obtain firearms to begin with? You get them from somebody that you cool with, another gang that you cool with. Did any members of BFL or CBL have relatives that purchased guns for the gang? Yes. And who specifically had a relative that did that? Myquise Jones. And do you recall what relative of Myquise Jones purchased guns for the gang? It was a female cousin. Do you know where she purchased the guns from? From Atlanta. And then she would transport them up to Buffalo and distribute them? Yes. Now, did you ever hold guns for other members of the gang? Yes. What does it mean to hold a gun? It's to, make sure you're safe. What would be a situation where someone would allow you to hold their gun for them? Like, if you gotta walk home and you need a gun, somebody give you their gun to walk home. You get home safe. Did CBL and BFL members ever trade guns? Yes. What was the reason for trading guns? People might just like your gun more. It might be better for what you're about to go do with it. And specifically, how were guns used by BFL and CBL members? For shooting, for protection. Was it important to know which guns were used in certain crimes? Yes. Why? Because you don't want no gun that got a murder on it. And why wouldn't you want a gun that had been used in a homicide? Because you could go to jail for it. Were you aware that police could conduct analysis of shell casings and match them to guns? Yes. So you didn't want to have a gun that had been used in a murder? No. Now I asked you some questions about access to firearms. I'd like to ask you about drug distribution. Where were guns sold in CBL BFL territory? In the Towne Gardens. Were they sold in the apartment complex itself? Yes. Where else were they sold in the down the way area? Just mainly in the Towne Gardens. What about some of those businesses that were surrounding the Towne Gardens? Were drugs sold there? You said drugs? I thought you said guns. Yes. I'm sorry if I misspoke. I meant drugs. Yeah, drugs. Where were drugs sold aside from directly in the Towne Gardens? IGA Plaza, McDonald's. Could anyone come into the Towne Gardens and sell drugs? No. Could anyone go into the IGA Plaza and sell drugs? No. Could anyone go into McDonald's parking lot and sell drugs? No. Why not? Because they ain't from BFL or CBL. So you had to be from BFL or CBL? Yes. Or be someone that was in good graces with the gang? Yes. What would happen if someone that was not CBL or BFL came in and tried to sell drugs in the down the way area? They would be robbed, killed, beat up. And did people try to come in and sell drugs and get beat up and robbed? Yes.